Good evening, everyone. That being after 7:05, we'll start the hearings tonight. This is for May 10th. Just a point of information, we have 2 hearings tonight, and then we'll be also addressing the 40B application. When we get to that level, what I'll do is I'll call up town council. He can explain that process so everybody's clear on how that gets developed and why the reason we're here with this particular project, and of course the other 2 we've been working with. Board members, I need a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
I make a motion we accept the minutes of April 18th.
A motion by Charlie. I have a second. Second by John. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. To the applicants, when you come to the podium and pick up the microphone, try to keep the microphone as close as you can to the bottom of your lip, for the simple reason that people will be able to hear you. When you start to take it away, you can't hear anything. So that would kind of help understanding some of the language that may go on tonight. Okay, with that, this is on the application of Daniel Onesian. Daniel here? And his attorney, I want you to come on up. I'll read the notice. On the application of Daniel Onesian, 14 Temple Street, Milford, for a variance relief pursuant to sections 2.4 and/or 2.5 of the zoning bylaw in relation to a parcel of land located at the southwesterly intersection of Fairbanks Street and Temple Street in Milford, consisting of about 15,000 square feet, more or less, which the parcel is owned by the petitioner. The variance relief is sought in order to permit the construction of a 24 by 24 foot 2-car garage on the northerly side of the existing single-family dwelling. Concerning the application, I think we had a mix-up on this particular application concerning the certain questions, so I'm going to turn that over to Town Council David Bertnazzi to fill us in on those particular items as far as the circumstances related to the conditions of the property, the zoning bylaw that you're asking for a variance for, and also, if it was not granted, what would the hardship be? And also state and feel why the grant for the variance will not cause any detriment or harm to the public good. With that in the file, let me just get the planning board's hearing here on their comments. The planning board did review this at their May 1st meeting, and they recommended 2 favorable, 2 unfavorable. Town planner letter, Larry Duncan indicated that the applicant, specifically the request, is for a variance from the front yard setback requirements to allow for the construction of a 24 by 24 2-story addition to the existing single-family dwelling to be 17.9 feet from the front of Fairbanks property line, where 30 feet is required. The existing 2-story single-family dwelling is conforming as to the setbacks and already has 1 attached garage at the first floor level. There's adequate room to build an 11 by 11 foot 8 wide 2-story addition without a variance. This would result in a 2-car garage on the main level. There appears to be no conditions whatsoever relating to the land itself or to the surroundings to constitute the hardship. In addition, the other houses along the street frontages meet the front setback requirements. Therefore, the town planner recommended the board report an unfavorable report to this board, and as I had just indicated, the planning board was split in their decision 2-2. David, you have a letter here. Do you want me to read it into the record, or would you?
I can address the points that are in there.
Okay, that's fine. So.
It went to the issues with the preparation.
Okay, great. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Attorney Bertnazzi.
I have a couple of extra plans here so that you can actually see them. Oh, I'm sorry, it's upside down. Plans for everyone, right? Test, test.
Test.
There you go. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I represent Daniel and Stephanie Onesian of 14 Temple Street. They've owned that property since September of 2015. By way of orientation, it's situated on the corner of Temple Street in Fairbanks, though it faces Temple Street. Temple Street runs between Nancy Road and Ivy Lane. The parcel contains 12,714 plus or minus square feet, and it's situated in the RB zoning district. On the property at present, there is a split entry, single-family dwelling. The Onesians recently welcomed a new member to their family on April 30th. New baby daughter Annie was born, and as a result, they need some more space in their home. So to address that, they are proposing to construct a 24 by 24 addition to their existing home. There would be a 2-car garage on the ground floor and a master bedroom above. This would allow them to convert the existing single 1-car garage to a playroom for the children. In order to do this, they need a variance from section 2. There were setback requirements in section 2.5 of your zoning bylaws. Because this is a corner lot, the Onesians are required to observe front yard setbacks on 2 sides on the street frontage. They're a little bit deficient on the side where they're proposing to add this addition. The zoning requirement is 30 feet. They will have 17.9 feet. If this was not a corner lot, if this was a regular lot with a house on that side, they could do this proposal as of right because they would have a 15-yard setback on that side. I would suggest that there are circumstances relating to the land and structures that are unique to this parcel and that do not generally affect the other parcels in the zoning district, such that a literal enforcement of the bylaw would cause hardship. Again, because this is a corner lot and you need to observe front yard setbacks on 2 sides, the buildable portion of this property is skewed to the southern portion of the parcel. The structure was actually constructed without regard to this, and as a result, you really can't add in any way to the existing structure without the need of zoning relief. The Onesians like this home, they like the neighborhood, and they would like to bring their family up in this home and in this neighborhood, and as a result, there is a hardship to them from their inability to do that. I would suggest to you that there wouldn't be any substantial detriment to the public good. The property would continue to be used as a single-family dwelling, which is permitted as of right in that zoning district. Again, if this was not a corner lot, they could do this development as of right with a 15-yard side setback on that side. There isn't going to be any adverse effects on pedestrian safety, traffic volume, anything like that flow from this particular project. And if anything, it would enhance the value and the appearance of the property, and as a result, the values of the neighboring properties. So I would suggest it's a meritorious petition, and if you have any questions, we're happy to address them for you.
Okay, before I turn it over to the board members and then to the public, I just have a quick question. The addition that's shown off the back, what type of an addition is that? Is that like a screened-in porch or?
Season porch, this part.
Yes. Yes, that's a 3-season porch.
3-season porch?
Yes.
And there's a bedroom over the existing 1-car garage right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Split entry, so.
Okay, great. All right, I'll start with John.
I don't have any questions at this time.
No questions.
I just quickly, I noticed, as you said, there's a underneath garage in this home, and there's a concrete drive going in. Is that going to be enlarged so they can move over to get into the other 2?
No, the existing 1-car garage is going to be converted to a playroom for the children.
Right.
What are the plans for that driveway, Dan, presently?
We were going to just kind of keep it as some extra parking.
Okay. Okay, fine, thank you.
Have you thought about trying to stay within the buffer and utilize a tandem garage? A 2-bay deep tandem garage? Just a question.
keeping the existing garage would eliminate the ability to sort of expand into that section for the, you know,
The addition above, the addition above is what you're
well,
saying.
they're going to be, the plan is to convert the existing one-car garage into a play area for the children. So what the
Okay.
town planner was suggesting was to use that continue to use that as a garage, but again, the family is growing bigger, and the plan is to expand the house to accommodate the increase in the size of the family.
Right, and my question was, if you added a one-car garage, but double deep, the length of a two-car,
I don't know that that was
it was a question. Okay, anybody in the audience want to be heard with this particular applicant? Any questions? Okay, you have your last word.
Well,
before-
just in further answer to that question, the setback line is sort of at a slant there too, so I don't know whether you'd be able to do what you're suggesting.
What's the footage there, by the way? I see we're 17.9 from the corner of the street, and the size is 24/24. Is he opposed to bringing that down to 22 by 24?
He's not opposed to that.
Okay.
Again,
it's a question.
there are some plantings over there as well, Mr. Chairman. So, it's sort of heavily vegetated and treed on that side. So, I don't know that there is any really significant impact on sight lines or anything along Fairbanks Street by this subdivision, by this proposal, in that, it's heavily planted and vegetated anyway. So I don't know that this is really going to have any, you won't be able to really see it as you come down Fairbanks Street because of the trees.
Okay. Anything else before we close the hearing?
Again, I would suggest to
With
you.
the mic, there you go.
Sorry, I would suggest to you that that the conditions exist for the grant of a variance. I think it is a meritorious petition. Again, the Onesians love this neighborhood, and they would like to bring up their family there. They just need a little more room because their family is a growing one. So they would ask that you act favorably on the petition and grant them the relief that they're looking for.
And I would assume that if anything is granted, that the roof lines would continue to be the same roof lines?
That is the plan, to continue the roof line.
All right, great, thank you. All right, we'll close the hearing. Do I have any comments from the board? Recommendations?
I'd like to make a motion to grant the variance as proposed.
As proposed. All right, there's a motion by Bob to grant as proposed. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other comments? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Just as a follow-up with that, there is a letter in the file from an abutter that has known the family for quite a while and has lived on Temple Street and clearly is in favor to help this family grow and expand in the neighborhood. All right, thank you. Jerry, you won't have any problem reading my writing with this one. With that, at 7:20, the application for Guaranteed Builders is next on the agenda. Okay, this is on the application for Guaranteed Builders and Developers, 14 West Street, Douglas, for special permit relief in pursuant to sections 3.1.2 or other applicable provisions of the zoning bylaw in relation to a parcel of land located on the northerly side of Franklin Street, consisting of 8,000 square feet, more or less, parcel of land which is owned by Rufus and Ardell Brackley. Special permit relief is sought in order to permit the demolition of an existing single-family structure upon the premises and a replacement with a new single-family structure with covered porch on the same footprint on the existing building. With that, the planning board did review this on May 1st and did recommend favorable. Town plan letter indicated that the existing lot is non-conforming due to the area. The dwelling's non-conforming due to the setbacks. Section 3.1.2 of the zoning bylaws provides for the restoration of non-conforming dwellings damaged by fire to the extent that more than 75% of it is a replacement value. The new dwelling is to be located substantially within the same footprint of the existing house. Also, the detached barn at the rear of the property is to be raised, therefore recommending a favorable report be sent off to this board. The application aspect is similar, as is the letter from the planning board. Therefore, it looks to me as it's going to be just a replacement of a structure. Therefore, I'll turn it over to the applicant for some explanation and an update.
Hi, my name's Karen Keegan. I'm from Guaranteed Builders. Yeah, so somewhere around Labor Day weekend of last year, they had a fire in this house, and the Blakeley's have been living there for 35 to 40 years. They wish to demo the existing, along with the existing barn, and replace it with a modular unit. And it would be pretty much in the exact same footprint that it is now, which is in the likeness of the neighborhood. So if you've ever driven down Franklin Street, and I know you have, they're all pretty much right off the street. There is an existing wraparound porch. They're only putting in the front porch. They're not going to wrap it around the side of the building. But there is a set of stairs that will be within the zoning requirements that will be off to that side on the right. There will be parking in the rear when he takes down the existing barn. And that's about it. Is there any questions that the board would have this evening?
Based on the plan that was submitted, you're replacing within the same setback?
Footprint. Yep.
Are you utilizing a new foundation or the existing
No,
foundation?
we're going to take that
Take it out?
foundation out and put in a new foundation.
Okay. So you're going to be staking this before you put the foundation in?
Absolutely.
Would you do me a favor and make sure that we pin the offsets so that it stays within the same footprint?
Absolutely.
We'll have the engineer do that pinning. That would help so that we stay within the conformity of what's proposed. Okay. That would be one recommendation I would have. Any other comments? I'll start with John.
I'm all set, thank you.
John?
All set.
Charlie?
All set.
Bob?
All set.
Set of plans, you have a set of plans for the
I
house
do.
that's being built? Anybody in the audience would care to be heard? So dimensionally, size-wise, is this a bigger square foot?
I believe that it is.
By how many square feet, do we know?
Don't know. It's a two-story, just like the existing.
So you have 3 bedrooms? Is that correct? Yeah? Okay. So you're replacing it with a 3, it was a 3-bedroom before?
It had 3 bedrooms plus a den downstairs, and the den was used as a bedroom also.
Do you remember how many square feet the home was?
The home was 1,390 square feet, I believe.
And this one here is?
This one here is just about 2,000.
Okay. These plans are the exact same plans? That are,
Yes,
okay.
they're preliminaries, but yes.
Okay. Preliminary, but they fit within the footprint?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They're
All
just
right.
not the ones that will be submitted to the building department.
Okay. If there's a recommendation, I'd like to make the recommendation based on a satisfactory review of plans be submitted to the building department. Okay. And pinning of the corners. Is that okay? All right, so we have a motion to approve, subject to pinning the corners of the foundation to make sure that it stays within the same footprint, and also subject to the plans being approved by the building inspector and supplied the proper sets. Second? Okay, second? All right, we have a second? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
That was easy, wasn't it?
It was.
Plant a nice couple of trees in there to show some beautiful landscaping. All right? Thank you. Okay, great. Good luck, sir. Okay, that being after 7:25, we'll take about 3 minutes for the applicant to get set up, and then we'll be able to move forward with starting the meeting. You want to put it on the stage, or you want to put it over here in the corner, everybody can see it close up? That would probably be a good idea.
So at this point, as you can see, there is a certain lack of members. Some members have had to recuse themselves, and we had two unfortunates tonight with family issues that had to be dealt with. But I think Mr. Moody will come up and explain how we are going to get around that, but at the same time be able to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of the number of members, there'll be 5 members that will ultimately decide this case. The 2 that aren't here, under what they call the Mullen Rule, will watch a CD or video of the meeting, and of course they have all the paperwork anyway. If any new paperwork comes in, they'll review that, and they'll be here at future meetings. But for now, the board will operate with the 3 members that are here, so that there will be a panel of 5 members that will make the ultimate decision. In the previous year, I'd asked that I explain a little bit of the 40B process to those who aren't familiar with it. Maybe most are, but a few of you may not be. And it's a statute that's been in effect in this state since about 1968 or 69. And it's a statute that allows developers in those cities and towns that are under a certain threshold of low and moderate income housing, which is basically 10%, they can apply in those communities, and those communities are obliged to hear the applications and make decisions on whether or not to issue a comprehensive permit, which can, and in some cases must, override such things as zoning and other local rules and regulations that might otherwise prohibit the particular activity. In this instance, of course, one of the major issues is that, not an issue, but one of the major underlying factors is industrially zoned property, just as is another one in Milford where there's an application for a 40B project that's going to have residential on it. That's what the statute is intended to do, to allow the developers, in essence, to stop those things with the legislature in its wisdom viewed as local controls that prevented the development of low and moderate income housing. So until a community like Milford or any community hits that 10% threshold, we have to consider and act on these applications. So there'll be a whole number of zoning and other issues that the developer in this case is asking to be waived in order to put his development at this particular location. Same is true as the other two that are pending in this town right now. So when Milford in the past has dealt with other 40B applications, although those have been more the townhouse 4-unit kind of developments, one on Beaver Street, one down on, I think it's Cedar Street. But there are 3 pending right now, all of which are proposed, each one of those, including this one, are proposed to be apartment units, which from the perspective of the town and consideration of whether or not it meets the criteria, you get to count the town, when this is approved and developed, gets to count all of those units towards that 10% threshold, which is important if they are granted. So at some point, a city or town is not obliged to consider these kinds of applications. But right now it does. The way the process works, of course, the developer has already submitted a lot of data, plans, an application, backup information, all of which I believe is up on the town's website. If you go to the town's website, there's a button for the 3 40B projects, and this one is identified, of course, as Birch Street Place. And everything that is submitted, has been submitted or will be submitted, will be up there so for easy review by anybody that wants to review it. So again, the applicant will make a presentation, and what will likely happen is the board will then continue the matter until a further night. We have, utilizing the fees provided by the applicant, hired a peer review consultant company which we've used in the past on other projects called CEI, and their representative is here tonight to monitor this, and they'll be reviewing everything in detail and submitting detailed reports on various of the issues, engineering issues, wetlands issues, traffic issues. Those reports will be coming over time. When we receive them, we put it on the website, but they'll be discussed at future meetings. Inevitably, I don't want to predict how long this one will go, but inevitably there'll be at least a couple of more sessions where these various issues will be discussed before any decision is made on it. So with that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, my name is Charlie D'Antonio, and as you can see, our Chairman David Consigli has recused himself from this hearing, and therefore I will serve as chairman for this 40B application. So we will get started here, and let me read the notice. On the application of 88, by the way, can everybody hear me okay? All right. On the application of 88 Corp., Kevin Lobuser, President, 31 Whitewood Road, Milford, Mass., for a comprehensive permit pursuant to the general laws of Chapter 40B in relation to a 20.95 acre, more or less, parcel of land off Birch Street in Milford, known as Lot 1, Birch Street, being a part of a larger parcel owned by Corner Brook LLC of 11 Commercial Way, Milford. The petitioner proposes to develop and construct a 162-unit rental apartment development on the site with no less than 41 of the units to be restricted as affordable for low, moderate income persons pursuant to applicable provisions of the law and requirements of financing agencies. A project eligibility letter was issued by the Mass Housing Financing Agency in relation to the site on March 5th, 2018. When I go to the actual application, there's a couple things that the petitioner answered. And the first, and these are important things that we look at. Explain the reasons you assert that the special permit sought is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw. His answer is the proposed development is consistent with Chapter 40B guidelines. Secondly, the proposed use of the premises will not create undue traffic, congestion, or impair pedestrian safety. His answer, the proposed development is consistent with Chapter 40B guidelines. And finally, the proposed use of the premises will not cause harm to the neighborhood or create a nuisance or hazard affecting the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. And again, his answer is the proposed development is consistent with Chapter 40B guidelines. Just to set the record for both the applicant and for the people here, we have received some letters from our town engineer, Mike Dean, and Mike has reviewed all of the information so far presented to them. And just let me paraphrase some of the things that he said. The applicant needs to discuss the availability of public water with the Milford Water Company. Obviously, everybody knows that might be the elephant in the room for these proposals. Secondly, the first area of concern is the intersection of Birch Street and Medway Street, Route 109, and the second area of concern is the intersection of Birch Street and Beaver Street. And finally, just paraphrasing, there were others, a secondary emergency access point should be discussed further, and that was about what he had. I'm not going to go through all of this because that will come out later. Yeah, and it's all on the website. Thank you, Jerry. And we also received from Larry Duncan, town planner, a review of the whole project, and I think he put in that he felt that they have done a lot of work, this applicant, with the town agencies, and he was favorable at this point, considering the things that were going through to this applicant. Again, we're also in review from Tate and Howard, which is an engineering firm that's hired by both the water company and the sewer department. And they have put in a review for the Board of Sewer Commissioners, and that, of course, is being entered into the record. And I don't know if the applicant is in receipt of that. You should be. Okay. The Board of Health also reviewed it, and their comments were basically water supply, and they were talking about that this will always remain as rental units, and none of them will be converted to condo units, which would increase the collection charges and so forth for the town of Milford and the health department. The police chief also sent us a letter, and he referred to that the traffic analysis would be dealt with by our peer review, CEI, and also it is addressed by the traffic consultant that has been hired by the applicant. And he also was concerned, as he was with the rest of the 40Bs, that when they do have to have a call at units like this, that he would probably have to have 2 cruisers respond. So he said that would be an increase. So finally, just let me give you an overview of how we're going to proceed tonight. First of all, we will ask the applicant to present and give him enough time to do it so he feels that he's adequately presented to this board. We'll also ask Matt Doyen from CEI. I don't know if he has any comments tonight because I think he has just been brought in on this, but he is the engineer who will help this board. We've hired him with funds from the applicant to help us to go through the mounds of engineering data, okay? Then I'm going to ask any board members if they have any questions. Then if there's any town departments like fire chief here, if they have any comments. And finally, I will get to the people here who are in attendance and will feel free to ask any questions you want. The only rules that we try to observe here to make this an organized meeting is that you ask your questions through the chairman. Therefore, we will make sure you get the answers that you're looking for, or we will get the answers that you're looking for. And finally, I just thought that, just so the record, in reading your application, the applicant is looking for, under the comprehensive permit from us, 36 different waivers that include, and let me just make you understand, a comprehensive permit makes the zoning board responsible for all of the other departments in the town to make the final decision on any waivers. So, and please, in the audience, don't be taken aback by 36. That is very similar to other 40B requirements, applications that we have. And most of those waivers are consistent with what the 40B law allows. Okay, so I just wanted to put that in perspective, all right? So with that, I will proceed to let the applicant present his project. Thank you. Mr. Lobiser, you got the...
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. So I'm Kevin Lobiser. I am the applicant of the Birch Street Place project that's being presented tonight. I first wanted to start off tonight by introducing my team, not only the members that are here, but also a few of the members that are not attending tonight. Our first member is Mark Allen, who is my civil engineer for the project. Secondly is Paul Frederick, who is our architect on the project. Third in attendance tonight is Ed Marchant, who is my 40B advisor, who hopefully he's going to be a wealth of knowledge for people tonight. And a few of the other team members that are not in attendance are our attorney, which is John Smolak, Ron Mueller, who is our traffic engineer and who did produce a very lengthy traffic study for us, and Maureen O'Hagan, who is our affordable housing lottery agent. The next thing I just wanted to just quickly go over was a project overview. I know, Mr. Chairman, that you did mention some of the things based on our application, but I just wanted to walk through it a little bit more and just to explain to everybody that this is a project that is going to consist of 4 3-story buildings that will each have their own elevator. One of those buildings is actually considered a 3-4 split, meaning that on one level it's 3 stories, and then on a walkout level there is a 4th story that's down at the ground level. There's also going to be a clubhouse with a pool building and a maintenance slash bike storage building, all which are going to be located on approximately 27 acres, which actually brings our units per acre to only 5.93, which under 40B standards is considered extremely light. As you said, we have a total of 162 rental units. 64 of them will be 1-bedroom units, 78 will be 2-bedroom units, and 20 of them would be 3-bedroom units. Out of that 162, 41 of them are the affordable units, and the affordable breakdown is 16 are 1-bedroom, 20 of them are 2-bedroom, and 5 of them are 3-bedroom. All 162 units do count towards Milford's subsidized housing inventory, because as you mentioned, this is a rental project and not a for-sale project. We are providing 324 parking spaces, which does include 32 garage spaces that are located in 4 separate 8-bay detached garage buildings. All of the units are going to be equipped with either a balcony or a patio. So first floor level units are on patio and everything else is with a balcony. Every unit will have their own private washer and dryer. And just a quick note on the amenities. We, as mentioned earlier, we do have a clubhouse with a pool. There'll be outdoor grills. There'll be a multi-purpose community room with a cafe bar, a billiards area, a private function room, a fitness yoga center, obviously a leasing office. We're going to have a separate package courier room, a playground, a doggy wash station, and a dog walk area. So the other thing that I just wanted to mention before I turn it over to the engineers is, unlike most 40B projects, this project did not come in as, for lack of a better term, a sneak attack. I have actually been working with the town planner, the town engineer, the planning board, Conservation Commission, the water department, sewer department, and the selectmen for over a year. Also, I think that maybe it's a little unprecedented for a 40B project, is after many of those town meetings, I spent a lot of time with my neighbors at the Birch Hill subdivision that are abutters. I even attended one of their annual meetings in, I think it was January, and they did a full presentation with kind of like a question and answer forum, and I thought that it actually went pretty well, but I guess we'll find out tonight. So with that being said, I did want to give the floor to Mark to kind of lay out the project for you guys.
Mark Allen, Allen Engineering, civil engineer, land surveyor of the project. I'd like to approach the easels just to kind of go through the site layout. Kevin did an excellent job explaining all the different components of the 40B application and all of its amenities. I'll just take a little bit of time to kind of go through where it came from as far as the layout, utilities, and permitting process. If you're not familiar with the property, it is between the intersection, it's along Birch Street on the westerly side, between the intersection of Route 109 and Beaver Street, about halfway down on the westerly side. It's just south of the Birch Hill condominiums, as you can see here on the satellite image, and just behind the Milford Fire Department and Birchler's Automotive along the Birch Street frontage. The way we came up with the design, as Kevin indicated, we've been working with the town planner, Larry Duncan, and working with the planning board in some working sessions to come up with a quad layout that's going to be on a plateau centralized around a common amenities area in the center. Went through a few iterations, and we think we've come up with a plan that will accentuate not only the property, but living in the buildings as well. That quad will be serviced by an access road off of Birch Street, and it will rise up to the elevation of the plateau in this area here in green. The property has been screened with the natural buffer that you can see to the north. It's about 100 feet wide in its current condition, and the elevation difference between the condominiums and our property is separated by a large berm in this area here. So it's high along the property line and low on either side of the two developments. The project with the 4 buildings will generate roughly 30,000 gallons per day of water and sewer, and we intend to discharge all of our stormwater on-site and mitigate that on-site, and anticipate full review through the Conservation Commission as one of our future permits, which I'll touch on. The water issue in town is obviously evident. We're working with the water commissioners, as Kevin indicated. The sewer that will flow will need to go down to the Birch Street sewer pump station, which Tata and Howard indicated that does need to be increased in capacity for its overflow reservoir chambers, and which we knew all along. We've met with the sewer department, Mr. Manini, and he indicated the same. So we're working with Tata and Howard to upgrade that pump station. The power and electricity will all go underground up to the units so that no overhead poles would be visible. And all of the stormwater will be collected and discharged on site and alleviated underground and or in open air basins. The landscape architect really did a nice job enhancing all the bare spots that may exist along when the evergreen trees are the only thing standing. They really peppered in a heavy buffer to the northerly abutters at Birch Hill condominiums, and all of the access to all the parking and aisles for the community areas are ADA accessible, handicap accessible. So with that, I think that kind of wraps up the site plan, the site layout. As far as permitting goes, we do need to first go to Conservation Commission because there is work within buffer zones and wetland areas that are on site. And we will also need to file with the Mass EPA for this use when it triggers an ENF, an environmental notification form, for the amount of parking spaces and impervious area.
Okay, are there any board members that have a question right now? Okay, the only one that I have in respect to the Birch, is it the Birch Street condominiums? I know them,
Yes.
I played there as a boy, so. Now, from the site plan, when you're there and looking up, do they see your buildings? Or how's the topography there?
The topography, if you're at the closest building, it rises up about 20 feet.
Okay,
And then from that 20 feet rise, it then will drop down about 15 feet. So it'll actually be a big knoll, so it'll be difficult to see the entire facade of the building. Plus, it's going to be wooded with at least 100 feet of trees in between.
all right, okay, thank you.
Yep. So with that, if there's no further engineering questions, I'd like to turn it over to Paul Frederick, the architect for the property to go through the buildings.
Hello, my name is Paul Frederick, and I'm an architect with HPA Design in Rentham. I'm also going to start off here with the site. And one of the things, actually, let me clip this up here for 1 second. One of the things we studied in the early stages is what would be an ideal type of project for this site. And I just want to review what the surrounding areas are, their uses. And I mean, everyone probably knows, but I just like to go through this roughly. This is about the location of the of the clubhouse quad.
Excuse me, just for 1 minute.
Yes.
Can you just take that board and slant it a little bit so the board members and the audience can see? In fact, if you're done with the site plan for now, you can readjust it, because we're kind of working in the blind right now. Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Lobiser. Is everybody okay in the audience for that? Okay. What's that?
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for the help.
Are you saying you have a... Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
As you can see what I'm doing, it took me a while to figure out this, so you just got to hold it up to your bottom lip.
All right, I'll try
Good
to
luck.
do that. All right, thanks. This is the toughest thing in the whole presentation. So starting back here, if we consider that where the clubhouse is, so straight north of the site is the Birch Hills. That's a townhouse community, multifamily. I think there are 3 or 4 unit buildings. Up to the northwest corner, we have a multi-bed residential nursing home, and then slightly south of that, on the on the west side is it Ari's Way, and that's another townhouse community. I think there are 2 or 3 unit living units with attached garages. Directly to the left is part of this parcel, I believe, all the way down here where the easement is Ari's Way property with nothing developed on it, and it looks like the utility easement goes through. Southwest, right over here, is Silver Street, and that is a single-family residential neighborhood. Directly south is the commercial building. It's a 2-story commercial building, and then that's right at the end of industrial. Right, and then on the entire industrial road side there's a large warehouse building at the end, and all of these here are some kind of an industrial use, business use. Straight off to the right, towards the east, is an automotive, and then the fire station is kind of northeast. Then at the upper end of Birch Street in the northeast there's some single-family homes right up in here, and then there's it's an assisted living, 60,000 square feet, I believe, or 70,000 square feet assisted living. So all these sites around here, they're very different uses, and this is an industrial zone. So one of the things we looked at is all this industrial could actually go all the way in through the site, all the way to the other side. And we felt like something like that, taking all this industry and pushing it over here, then in these multifamily and single family, right in their backyard, they have all this industry. So what we thought would be a better use is we take this and we have a transitional area where we have a medium density multifamily residential project. And that kind of is a transition area, and it bridges, it meets some of this. It's a little more dense than the single families, et cetera. So that's how we arrived at what the project would best serve that area. Excuse me. As Kevin mentioned, the site consists of 4 buildings, 4 three-story buildings. One is a 3-4, and that was the only reason why it's a 3-4. It's a building on this side. All these are on, all 4 buildings sit across from this clubhouse. As the ground land terraces down, we followed the grade and just made a 4-story. Otherwise, these would all be 3 stories, both sides. They could be 4 stories by code, et cetera, but they wanted to keep the density down. They all have elevators. They don't need to have elevators. We put one in every building. Kevin wanted elevators in every building. That means we have to be more stringent on the upper levels. All units on all floors either have to meet Group 1, Group 2 accessibility, all fair housing, and any that don't on all floors then have to be adaptable. So putting elevators in this building makes more, the units have to follow more stringent requirements on all floors. As he mentioned, there's 4 buildings, a clubhouse building. The clubhouse is in the center of this. The clubhouse is very important to these communities, and that will have all the amenities. Kevin already talked about those. And the maintenance, and then there's going to be 4 8-bay single-story parking garages for the whole site. The units, I mean, we can go through unit plans. They gave you the unit count. They're here. I don't know if anyone really, cares about the layout of the units, et cetera, right now. So I believe I've pretty much covered everything that these guys, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. Yes. Oh, you can.
Thank you, Paul. Just quickly, I just forgot to mention that through our design phase, the landscape architect has provided a lumen plan, if you will, that shows all of the exterior lights that are going to be on the property, and the net result is no light will leave the property. All of the lights are going to be dark sky compliant, and the project, I think it's on sheet 7. I just want to show you for your comfort that all the lighting has been directed downward, has been baffled to the rear, so anything that's going to be, should be the next one. Oops. Of course, it's upside down. Yeah. So you can see those contour lines represent the illumination of light as they go further and further away from the structures themselves. So the pole-mounted lights, as well as the building-mounted lights, and the decorative lights around the clubhouse and pool areas are all shown there, and none of the contours, the lighting contours, get anywhere near the property line. So I wanted to make that point clear to you that was looked at. It's very common that when lighting goes in, it becomes a question as far as, has it been taken care of, and we absolutely have. Bowler Engineering and Landscape Architecture is the consultant that helped us out with that. One other point that I forgot to mention, and I'll just flip this over, is that since we sent in the application, the property itself has actually gotten larger. This 20-acre piece is cut out of a 45-acre larger piece, and it's all land court land, and what we're doing is we're cutting it out into 3 separate lots, this being the residential portion, and the other 2 are going to be industrial. So as Paul was trying to mention, that transitioning design that we're looking to do, that transitioning starts with this residential component, and that residential component is shown as lot 1 on the plan I just handed out. And we increased our land area by 7 acres from the initial plans that you have before you. And that was due to neighboring concerns wanting to give more open space that abutted the residential uses to the west, southwest. So there is a slight change, and going through land court now, we've done all of the field work. We've been back and forth with land court once. And in order to cut this lot out successfully, we need to go to get a final land court certificate and a planning board endorsement to be recorded. And we anticipate that within the next 30 to 60 days.
Registered land, obviously?
Correct. Correct.
When it comes to the site plan, there was one other question I wanted to ask. It came up that there probably should be a secondary emergency access point that should be discussed, and previous plans have shown some type of secondary access. The plans that submitted do not have a secondary access point, and this was brought up by Michael Dean, town engineer. Do you have any comments on that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The secondary access was initially part of our proposal. And as Kevin mentioned, over the past 12 months, we've been going back and forth with the planner, with the fire department, and various town boards, Conservation Commission. There is a large wetland here that resides behind Birchless Automotive, and that secondary access would have skirted that location. We do have the physical access easement through that property, and that property is connected to the Milford Fire Department. But I think through the course of the planning board vetting, we had received communication that the fire department was not in need of that at the time, and that they felt confident that it's so close by that the secondary access wouldn't be needed. We're not opposed to providing that should the consultants that review the project warrant it. It is there for our availability, but we just, through this iteration, eliminated it to this point for that reason.
Okay, and that will come under further discussion
Sure.
as we get into it. The other thing you had mentioned that you had been working with the Milford Sewer Department relative with Tate and Howard, who's their particular consultant on the sewerage, the increase in the pump station and so forth. I haven't seen anything directed to us from Tate and Howard. Well, there was something, but let me just get down to it. Was there any work done right now with Tate and Howard doing a report for this specific project relative to the water company?
Relative to the water company, I'm aware of the water. Sewerage, yes. Water, I'm unaware.
All right. The only thing that was alluded to is that Tate and Howard had done a report back in. Right. And, okay. And I was just talking with Jerry, and they alluded to the Birch Street, and they showed all of the 3 40B projects relative to the water situation. Now, have you done any? I don't know if somebody else is going to cover this, but have you had discussions with the water company at this point?
Kevin, I believe, has, and he could probably speak better than that.
That's fine. I'll let you finish up there, and we'll let Kevin take that over. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thanks. I think I'd like to give it to Ed Marchant, the 40B consultant that's been working with us and putting together the packages and the plans and all the applications, just to wrap up our presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Ed Marchand, 40B advisor. I would just like to mention a few items related to 40B. I think you're probably familiar with this, but 25% of the units must be affordable to families at 80% of the median income for the East and Worcester County HMFA, adjusted for household size. 70% or 28 of those units can be allocated based upon local preference. The community gets to set those local preferences as long as they're consistent with DHCD guidelines. So we would look for guidance from you on that. The income ranges and the fiscal year 18 HUD limits were recently announced, but the incomes would range for the smallest household, which would be a one-person household, from $50,350, and the maximum income limit would be for a three-bedroom home, and again, I'm assuming no more than 2 persons per bedroom, and that would be unusual, but that would be up to approximately $83,000. So this is really designed to be moderate income housing. I've worked on a lot of 40Bs. I just want to mention, I did not get involved with this project until a little later when the sort of basic building program was developed. But This is unusual in that it's only 3 stories. I think all of you know now that building code allows wood frame buildings up to 5 stories. So it's unusual to see a 3-story building, and sometimes 3-story buildings don't have elevators. Kevin thought it was very important to have elevators to increase accessibility and to make these units attractive to empty nesters. And we expect that there will be a strong demand for these units from empty nesters. I think those are the only comments I have. The other comment I would make is that this is a development team that's worked together on other developments. That always makes it go a little bit smoother. And again, I know you're all familiar with Kevin's prior developments.
Okay, thank you. Wrap up? Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think that's a much concern of the board members and the people in the room.
So unfortunately, I think if I had the answer for the water, I'd probably be in a really great position right now in town. So I have actually met with Dave Condrey multiple times on the project, and I actually did talk with Jerry a little bit too. So I think that the understanding is that there's 3 40B projects that are kind of out there. We have not met as a group together at all. I've actually been asked to meet with them a couple of times, but I don't know them very much. I don't know their business, and didn't know if I really wanted to get too tight with them. But in talking with Milford Water, I think that really what's happening is they ultimately want to see what's going to happen with approvals, in my opinion. And again, I'm being very blunt. I just think that's what David and the water company are at right now, is they want to see who's going to hang in there, who's going to get approved, what are the real numbers, and then how are they going to work together to try to help the water company, I think, achieve what they need to achieve to be able to provide water. So I don't think I'm answering the question because I don't know if there's an actual answer just yet, but that seems to be the direction that they're kind of pushing us in.
Okay, so what you've said is this, that there was some talk about the 340Bs, and that's your prerogative to do what you have to do for your project and what they have to do. And what you're saying is that the Dave Condrey of the water company is taking a position, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he's saying, okay, let's see who gets approved and then proceed from that point. As you know, all of the 40Bs will have to have an affidavit from the Milford Water Company before building permits are issued that you will be able to supply water, and that water will be supplied without a detriment to the town of Milford, correct?
Yeah.
Is that your understanding?
And actually, Mr. Chairman, it goes even further than that. There isn't one of our projects that would be able to get the financing to move forward without having that type of a letter from the water department. So I would say that there's really a minimum of 2 checks and balances to make sure that there's ultimately water available for anybody.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yeah, I think that we're, I'm sure we could talk
forever,
but yeah, I think we're good, and we can open it up. And
at the conclusion, with the help of Mr. Moody, we will determine the next meetings and what subjects will be covered at those meetings so that we can concentrate and get through this process, okay?
Yes. Yeah, perfect.
At this point, I would like to open to the audience, Mr. Visconti. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Visconti, I made a mistake. That's right, you're going to be heard. Board members, do you have any questions? You're back up, Mr. Visconti. Sorry. Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Hey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Visconti. At a previous meeting regarding this same matter, I suggested and requested that you aggressively seek a waiver from the 3-bedroom requirement, and the indication was that you would seek this waiver. I'm wondering, do you have the results of that application for the waiver?
Mike, you referring to a meeting on this project before this board? This is the first meeting on this project.
I am.
Okay, but I'm not sure what meeting you're referring to. This is the first time this board has met with this applicant on this project, but you said at a prior meeting.
Yeah, it may have been. It may have been at town hall, at a selectmen's meeting.
Some other meeting? Well, yeah. So this board is not aware of that. The three-bedroom requirement, if you've paid attention to this, I don't mean that you haven't, the other proceedings, a change came in the regulations some years ago that required that 10% of all structures and projects like this be 3 bedrooms. The state is not going to grant a waiver of that. There's nothing we can do about it. Used to be able, a city town, be able to put a condition on perhaps that they all be 2 bedrooms, and sometimes a developer wanted that, and other projects in town have had that requirement. But because of that, the state has now required that 10% be 3 bedrooms, and there's nothing this board can do about waiving that.
With all due respect, in accordance with an agreement between Mass Housing and CDAC, the Community Economic Development Assistance Corp., you may apply for a waiver of the 3-bedroom condition. So once again, with all due respect, there is an application for a waiver, and my suggestion is that you aggressively apply for that waiver, which will help potentially reduce the burden on our school systems and also help in the traffic flow. Secondly, with regard, and I believe it was Mr. Marchand, I hope I have his name pronounced, touched on this about the preferencing of the residency. I would suggest and hope that you would include a preference condition that our veterans have first preference on the affordable units, assuming all the other conditions are met. And additionally, that our veterans who have lived in Milford for at least the past 2 years have preference on the units. We talk about doing things for our veterans all the time. We have here a perfect opportunity to now act to do something for our veterans. So I would hope that you would preference our veterans for residency. Lastly, can you tell us who the 5 deciding members will be?
Yeah, Dave Consigli on this one has recused themselves, but we're going to have John Dagnes, and we're going to have Bob, and we're going to have Tim Walsh, and we're going to have Mark Calzaloya, and me.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, and thank you for your comments, Mr. Visconti, and we are very well aware of what the whole preference sequence will be for these affordable units. And that is something that will be discussed and will be made public and how we would do that. And as you said, veterans and other people employed in the town will be considered, and there's a special kind of lottery that we can enter into to deal with that.
Okay, if you look back, just as a suggestion, if you look back at probably one of the first 40Bs that Milford ever approved, there was a very detailed preference statement that might be helpful to you.
Okay, we'll look at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to be heard? And just come up, state your name, and be more than happy to listen to your comments.
I'm Lou Fortin, 2 Lombardi Circle and Birch Hill, which is one of the abutters, and we're one of the buildings closest to the property line. 2 concerns, I guess. One is blasting. Blasting is going on now. I know it's not part of Kevin's project, and the blasting is done more than 250 feet from our units. But when that blasting goes off every day around noontime, our buildings are shaking. So when we start getting blasting closer, it's a major concern because I'm not sure how well we're going to fare with that. Now, Kevin had said that they're going to do a pre-blasting survey, taking pictures of all our units. Will that apply to all the units in the complex that we have, or just the ones that are like within 250 feet?
It's up to you. Anything within 250, you have to do a pre-blast survey. Outside of that, some people will opt to pay for their own. Sometimes the developer will pay to have them done, depending on the number.
Because we're well outside of the 250 feet now, and that blasting that's going on is really shaking things up. I know you're aware of that, right? Yeah, yeah. So that's a concern.
And if I'm not mistaken, the fire chief and your department are responsible for the blasting and have to sign off that it's meeting all the requirements not to do any damage, I would accept. Okay.
All of the shots, Mr. Chairman, are monitored with seismographs. I know it's not Kevin now, but the other companies that are in the area. And, they monitor with seismographs, and there's a firefighter on detail witnessing every one of the shots.
Okay, thank you.
The other concern is the buffer line. Right now, it's pretty thin. 'Cause we can see the big construction equipment going by like it looks like dinosaurs on the horizon here. So are you going to be adding a significant amount of trees in there to cover that?
Yeah, from when you were at the...
Yes, yeah, right, yeah, yeah.
After that meeting, when we took all of your comments, we actually went back to Bowler Engineer, and originally we just had a single row of trees in buffer.
Yeah.
We've now done an alternating double row.
Okay, all right. Will that pretty well shelter the lighting as well, or?
Yeah, I think Mark answered the lighting question.
Yeah, the lighting doesn't come anywhere near the buildings on the property. It doesn't even reach the property line itself.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. CEI have any questions at this point? Okay, fine. I know you've been just put on the case, so I'm not going to put you on the spot. Okay, well, the next thing that I would like to do before we close out the meeting, and Jerry will help us with this, to try to sort out the next meetings and the subject for those meetings.
Probably ought to, my guess is we ought to schedule maybe 2 meetings.
Okay.
And whether we divide up a couple of topics within that period. In that interim between meetings, hopefully you folks will meet with us in the town hall and discuss some issues. But I would say we should schedule out 2. You've got a lot scheduled right now.
Yeah. Yes, we are here quite often on these 40Bs.
Matt, what kind of time do you think you need to do a good review of all this? About 4 weeks, so about a month? Yeah. So we probably ought to be looking then at about a month.
Well, it also, sorry, it depends, do you want to, what topics, do you want to go first? Do you want traffic first, or?
You think traffic can be ready within that period of time or sooner?
Yeah.
Or maybe traffic is an important issue. Water and sewer sort of flow together. And
Right.
I gather that there's no dispute with the sewer department. You're going to comply with everything the sewer department wants. So that may not be an issue.
Yeah, the sewer was probably one of our easier ones. Very early on, I went to see John. We talked about the sewer pump station. We had to figure out, first of all, which direction it was going, which pump it was hitting. Once John, let us know that, we realized that that pump was not going to be big enough. So we had agreed with John that whatever, basically, Tater comes back with, we understood that if he's going to allow us to tie into it, we'd have to do the work, so.
And you saw that most recent, it actually
Yeah.
wasn't recent, but I think you may have gotten it by email
yeah,
today.
it's about 8,000 gallons shy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously a failing system now, so.
So again, you're going to meet with their requirements as they're in that letter
Yes.
and other requirements that they
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
I noticed among the waivers you asked for was waivers from certain sewer department rules and regulations, so I presume you don't need those. You're not looking for those because you're going to comply with their requirements.
I would actually have to leave that to Ed. I'm not sure which those were, to be completely honest with you.
John Smolak, our attorney, always is conservative in drafting the waivers.
I saw
it
that,
might
yes.
it may have applied to the administrative process in terms of having to appear before or file an application, as opposed to the comprehensive permit, which you explained, where you act on behalf of all boards.
Right.
In terms of the substantive matters, and I reviewed that letter also, I don't think, there's no question Kevin will do what is necessary to make that sewer system work properly. So we'll review that. I'll ask John Smolak to review that again and provide some clarification.
A number of the waivers that you've requested in certain areas, and I could tell that somebody's basically hit everything that they could ever conceivably need, but you really don't need all of them. So he should maybe have a discussion with me about that at some point in time too. Let's see which, obviously you need the zoning waivers, obviously you need,
Could I ask him to call you directly?
If you can find me, absolutely.
That'll
So,
be great.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
So, the 7th?
See, we got stone here.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, the fourth week we'd be putting them here.
That's possible.
And then we could put them there if everybody's going to be around. Yeah, 7th. Yeah. What we're looking at, oh, sorry. And I'll have the board, this is going to be consistent with how our board members, because we want to have everyone here, unlike tonight. So we're looking at Thursday, June 7th, to be the CEI review and the subjects we'll be covering.
Yeah, so you think you have traffic ready that night? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the other topics, well, sewer obviously isn't going to be something you're going to review, nor water. So it's really, the rest is just the civil engineering aspect of it and the layout of the entire project. I mean, it's possible you have everything ready at that time? Not to pressure you. You think you could actually have everything ready by the 7th? Yeah. Okay.
So that'll encompass now.
Well, the 7th, it sounds like we're going to do traffic, and maybe sewer is simple, so maybe we can just have Dave Condrey and John Minini make sure there are no outstanding issues and have that all cleared up. Sewer and water, yeah. And then maybe at your next meeting, we can, take up all the remaining civil engineering issues.
All right, and what I'd be proposing is that we go with the 21st, which is a Thursday, which is, that would give us 2 weeks from the 7th. And the reason I'm suggesting that, yeah. Yeah, and the reason, the only reason I'm doing that, Melissa, is because we're getting close to vacations and so forth. Everybody knows about those 2 dates, so they're not taking off, hopefully. So I figure, we just as well do it that way. I think that might work out. Now, I could be wrong, so we'll see how it plays.
Mr. Chairman, can I just bring up one thing?
Sure.
I know that Mr. Moody maybe didn't mean that, but on the layout for the design review, again, unlike I think almost every other 40B, we actually have worked on that layout with the town planner, town engineer, and the planning board. So I know he's kind of new to the game right now. I'm hoping that that's not something you're looking to try to change on us, because yeah, no, okay. But it was also, Jerry, very important to me too, and I know that the people that come from the Birch Hill condos know, is that from really the last time I met them, I promised them that my project was going to be, whether they came to this meeting or not, it was going to be the project that I presented to them. There was no, bait and switching and changing things and adding units and all. So I just want to make sure I made that known.
As Mr. Dolan, you folks can work together, help him expedite his review, work with him, and again, they'll report to the board. And,
Right.
Ideally, everything will work out.
Okay, so we're looking at June 21st. Yep, 7th and 21st, and that might be it. That might be vetting the final issues and wrapping it up. Yeah, if we need another meeting, we'll schedule it. Now, has everybody in the audience got those dates? Because there will not be any further announcements on these, will there? Okay, all right, okay, all right. So, but again, it's the 7th of June and the 21st of June, okay? Yes, sir.
Just for the record, I noticed he has announced the times and the location.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock here.
Yeah.
Milford Town Hall, probably this room, but if we change it, we post it.
Yeah, when you get there, we would take care of it. Okay, I'd like to appreciate, the board is appreciative of everybody tonight and the contributions and the way we've conducted this meeting. And so we look forward to seeing you at the next. Thank you.